This is the Post Shift Podcast, a raw look at the hospitality industry. Welcome, Post Shifters, to another wonderful episode of the Post Shift Podcast, your absolutely die-hard hospitality podcast, which I really hope you enjoy because I really busted my balls while I was at Toronto Cocktail Conference to give you all these wonderful interviews, and I hope you're thinking they're wonderful. This one, even though it's a little bit down the track since Toronto Cocktail Conference, it is literally with one of my favorite people, and that is the marvelous, wonderful, humble, spectacular human being that is Andrew Toplack. And I am not understanding this whole fact. If you're in the Toronto region and you're a bartender, or in that whole like Ontario area, and you're a bartender and you don't know Andrew Toplack, you're doing something wrong, because the man is so passionate and deeply dedicated to the Toronto cocktail scene. It is just amazing what he does. He does his own sessions. Like, this is a general public. He's a GP by trade, well, a general practitioner by trade, and he does tasting sessions. And I've never seen this anywhere else in the world. Victoria gets very close. It's a very close second, but he is this one person who just is the epitome of what the cocktail scene in Toronto is. And I just had a blast sitting down with him. I've crossed over with him at Tales of the Cocktail and Toronto Cocktail Conference. I've had dinner with him. I just truly adore this man, and I really hope that shines through in this episode, because I can't speak highly enough about him. And if you're listening right now, Andrew, thank you for everything that you do for everybody in this industry, because truly, I think not enough people say thank you to this guy. So I really hope you enjoy this episode, guys, because I really had a blast recording it. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Hey.
Trevor Caddies.
Okay.
Sorry, TK.
I love that you short form it.
Yeah, he's been TK to me for a lot longer than I think most people. But, so I keep it pretty cash.
Okay.
We never talk about anything. I never write down questions.
Okay.
I find it flows a lot better.
Sure.
I know you're not the swearing type, but...
I've been known to swear in the odd time.
So swearing's fine.
Okay. I'll promise to try to not say motherfucker.
The motherfucker's fine. So yeah, we just keep it pretty fluid, and I'm super excited because I think you were one of the very first people I met at Tales.
Wow.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
So like 2009, 2010. You've been going to Tales since... You haven't missed a Tales, have you?
I haven't missed a Tales since the first year I went, which was 2008.
Wow. Which is they were only like 2-3 years old then.
They were 5 years. They
really?
started in 2003.
Huh. And before we sort of get started, I'm going to probably do an introduction anyway. Introduce yourself.
Me?
Yes, you. And sort of...
How?
Look, you're obviously Andrew Toplack, and I'm going to do an intro for this before the podcast. Okay. I don't over-edit my podcast either, so it's very fluid. You're a doctor by profession.
Yes.
And you still practice?
Yes.
So that's your Monday to Friday gig?
Yes.
And GP?
Yes. But I do psychotherapy.
Okay.
And my practice has been limited to psychotherapy for over 35 years.
So basically since you started working with bartenders?
I have worked with the odd bartender in that time.
It's literally you just, I can see that all my patients are bartenders, so I think I'm just going to start crossing the lines.
No, not that at all.
Like you do this by day?
Yeah.
How long have you been in the industry? Because you're you're more of an industry person than most industry people.
Well, it's weird because I've always it depends on how far back you want to go.
Has it really been that long?
Well, yeah. I mean, 20 years ago, 1998, I imported really good tequila and mezcal into Ontario.
I didn't think it was that long ago. I thought it was
20 years.
Yeah, I thought it was like lining up to when you started going to Tales and stuff like that.
No, it was before. And because, boy. So in the 90s, 80s a bit, but mostly in the 90s, I would go to Mexico. I'd go to the U.S., big city like Washington. I remember going to a conference in Washington. Mark Miller, who was a Southwest U.S. Chef, had a big deal restaurant in Santa Fe had one in Washington. And they had a bar that had a wall of tequilas that you could taste by the glass. And they were spectacular tequilas. Centinela, El Tesoro de Don Felipe, just a bunch of really, really good sipping tequilas, which we never had at all in Canada. We had Cuervo and Salsa at the time. That's what we had.
And mixtos, not even the 100%, not even the good stuff.
I don't recall a single 100% agave tequila on the shelves at that time.
That's scary.
And so I thought, okay. In my medical training, I'd gone to Glasgow for a 2-month elective in 1974. And that was when I encountered really good malt whiskeys. Again, at that time in the 70s, in Ontario, we had Glenfiddich and Glenlivet. That was it. And they were relatively recent. Everything else was blended Scotch. So, but I encountered all these malt whiskeys, Oban and all sorts of really good ones. And then I came back here to Ontario, and I watched over the next few years while they just came into the market. So when I tasted all those really good tequilas in the States and Mexico, I knew that was going to come. That's what was going to happen for tequila, what happened for malt whiskey. And I thought, well, I wouldn't mind being part of that this time. Maybe I can actually make some money at it. And it was hilarious. Two things. One is I'm the worst businessman in the world. And so the thought of me making money at it was quite hilarious. But the other thing was, it was early. No one even knew about the tequila or mezcal. So I went down, I signed up some tequila companies. I brought in Tapatio for a while, Centinela for a very short time, and a brand that was very good at the time called El Conquistador. It was made originally by Agroindustria Guadalajara. And by chance, I also had the opportunity to bring in Del Maguey. So I brought in Del Maguey Mezcal in 1998.
Oh my God. This is insane. I honestly didn't think it was that far back. And how did it go over? Like,
I basically mostly worked with licensees. Yeah. So I got into some bars. I didn't do the right kind of going around. I didn't know very many people at all. I got it into certain bars in town that were very good places. I didn't do a lot of repeat sales. Basically, the Del Maguey got the Chichicapa and Minero got in the Classics catalog in the LCBO in 1998.
Wow!
And that was quite an achievement. But I didn't at the time know how to support it.
Yeah.
And so after a while, it got delisted, and that was it. So I did a lot of educating. I did tastings at the LCBO for their product consultants on both tequila and mezcal. Taught a tequila class and a mezcal class at the sommelier.
Because I'm looking back, I started my career in 1998.
Oh wow!
That's when I started bartending.
Okay.
So for me, looking back and looking at your foresight in 1998 and looking where I was in my career in 1998. Makes no sense to me at all, because when I started, the industry, the bar industry in Australia anyway was still very much in its infancy. So even thinking about mezcals, when everybody says mezcals become popular in the last 5-6 years, mezcal's cool now, but we're talking 20 years ago.
Yes, which is why they didn't really sell that well. I mean, certain people knew them.
Yeah.
The reason I got the ability to do that is Chris McDonald, who is one of the top chefs in the city, had encountered Del Maguey Mezcal at Frontera Grill, Rick Bayless's restaurant in Chicago. And when he and I talked before I went down to sign up tequila producers, and he called Ron Cooper and said, "Ron, there's this guy in Toronto who might be interested in importing your mezcal." Basically, he did it because he wanted the mezcal at his restaurant. And so what I did was, so I got back from this trip to a phone call on my answering machine because
For the kids at home.
Yes, an answering machine. It was a machine that answered the phone for you and recorded a message. And it wasn't call answering. That was totally different. And even that's gone by the wayside. Gone. From Ron, who'd called me up, said, "Hey, I understand you might be importing my mezcal into Ontario." Awesome. Ron hasn't had to call people for years. People call Ron. Ron doesn't call people. And and we had to talk on the phone long distance because the internet was in its relative infancy. And it was just hilarious.
That's amazing. So I discovered Del Maguey at the 2009 Tequila.net Spirit Awards down in Mexico.
Yes.
And it was a Chichicapa reposed in Stag's Leap casks.
Yes.
And so when BC started getting Del Maguey, Ron actually came up for the Out of the Cocktail and gave me a bottle of each of those, which is only 15 of each, over bottled.
Yes.
And that was like one of the best gifts I've ever got from Ron Cooper. Because I had the same sort of relationship with Ron. Like, I found it in Mexico, came back to BC, was tracking it down. Someone in Alberta who shipped it through Charlton and Hobbs.
Yes.
Had it. But I'll tell you a funny story about Del Maguey. Like, because I opened up Cafe Mexico a couple of years ago, found the SKU for the Rainbow Pack, ordered it. The Rainbow Pack shows up dusty as hell. Crack it, open it. There's 2001, 2002, 2003 vintages of it in the Rainbow Pack because it had just been sitting on a pallet somewhere in Alberta, transferred to BC, and no one had been buying it.
Yes.
And I remember buying that in 2006 at Moxie's. It would have been the same pallet.
So a Rainbow Pack was what?
It was one Monero, one Chichicapa, one San Luis del Rio,
and the
Crema.
And there's the Alvarado, something or other Alvarado is the other village.
Yeah, and so it was their Rainbow Pack from that year, and now they've got a whole bunch of SKUs, which I'm looking forward to getting into it and seeing. But that's a different story.
I actually invented. See, the LCBO doesn't like to import. Well, you have to import all of a case.
Yeah.
Right? So I invented a package called a tasting 4-pack in 1998. Called it a tasting 4-pack. And invented it, and it was one bottle of each of the 4 villages, because the crema didn't exist at that point, and it went through, and I could deliver this tasting one case of
it's always
4
perfect.
bottles.
Yes,
it was an invented thing.
Every licensee is just like, yes, I'll take that. Yes, I'll take that. So that's 1998. What else did you import over that time? Because I know that we've sat down and had a number of conversations about absinthe.
Yes,
you're a massive absinthe head.
Yes.
Substantially absinthe head.
Yes.
What would you say is the other stuff that you've sort of imported purely for your own personal passion that you hope made money?
Well, all the stuff I'm doing now, I've only done for about. Well, it took me about 4 years to get Tempest Fugit. To get them to say yes. Partly there were a lot of things they had to look at in their own way of doing things. Canada's not high on anybody's list to send stuff to. But it took a while. I've actually only been doing it for about 3 years. In the break in between, after doing it for about 4 or 5 years, back in '98 till about 2001 or 2, I just kind of threw in the towel because it just wasn't happening. I made a lot of good friends at the time. I developed a good reputation with the LCBO, the product consultants, some of whom I still know to this day. And then I just kind of let things go. And I bought a timeshare in New Orleans in 2003 and started going to New Orleans. And once a year for a week. And 2003, and I started bringing my family along with me and stuff like that. And the weeks in May, and in 2005 was Katrina. Well, I was back in 2006 and 7, and 2008 in May, I kind of saw a poster for Tales of the Cocktail. I thought, that's a really good idea. I think I'll come back for that. And I did. And I've been coming ever since, because it's just a crazy event.
It is a nuts event. And did Tales sort of spur on everything you do? Because, like I said before, it's like you're literally one of the most non-industry people, and we've got a couple in Victoria, and I know like Christine's is Mondo here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't matter if it says industry only on the invite for any sort of like masterclass or stuff.
Yeah.
You're always welcome to these things.
Usually I'm welcome, and I
Anybody
really
who
enjoy
makes you
it.
unwelcome, just let me know.
Okay, I will. Now, I get treated ridiculously well, but partly, I want to say what partly really opened me up to this community is from the very first in 2008 going to Tales, and all the people are there. You know, Dale DeGroff is there, Dave Wondrich, Ted Haig. I remember sitting down and talking to Ted Haig in the Swizzle Stick Bar for about an hour and a half in 2008. And these are people that, if we're talking about acting, these would be all Academy Award winners, right? And you wouldn't get near them. Well, at Tales, it's like you just could walk up to them and talk to them. And they'd be interested in me and why I'm there. And so what an open acceptance is what really struck me.
Is that why you keep going down?
I think that's what got me involved initially. And I love learning, and I've probably always been a fan of wine and spirits. My dad started us off years and years and years ago on both. And he was a pretty incredible guy and wanted us all to learn how to drink responsibly and how to appreciate good quality. Yep. And so I really enjoy learning. I enjoy knowing stuff that other people don't know. And I think the bartending community, the hospitality community, is a wonderful community, and I think it provides a lot to the world, and I think the people in the community don't know how much they give the world.
It's a nice sentiment. Wow. It's like it's basically a noise clip for me to use.
Well, it's just true. It's just true. I think I know in the past bartenders were more highly thought of in the community, but I think we're probably still recovering from prohibition. Even now, in terms of the hospitality industry and how people in it tend to feel about the industry and about themselves.
I think especially in Canada it does make it easy though. So I think you've just said that bartenders give a lot and you're always willing to be open, but like you give a lot back to the community. Like you do the Toplack sessions.
Yes.
Your Toplack sessions have become sort of legendary. Like I've watched a few live feeds, and I see the people that show up and the people you wrangle to come up here and stuff. Like the Toplack sessions are like legendary in themselves.
It's become a thing, and it didn't start off that way.
How did it start off, and when did it start off?
It started about 3 years ago, and frankly, the reason why it started was I was talking to Jonathan Humphrey, who everything in my life in the last 10 years has started with me talking to Jonathan.
Good and bad.
Absolutely.
Always starts with John.
Absolutely. Completely. I'll blame him for all the bad. But we were talking, and I had done the bar 5-day course.
Yep.
And I passed the written well, and I didn't pass the practical. So I say to John, I need some practice making cocktails, because I got to get fast. I got to get good at it. And John said, he said, well, how fast are you? And I said, I'm not drink fast. And he said, well, what do you think about doing some bartending for 2 hours on a Tuesday night? I said, sure, I think that'd be good. Did you think people would come out? Yeah, he said they'd come out. Then we wove into it after a period of time, a 20-minute talk by a bartender. By the time we actually did it, the talk by the bartender was much more important than my being behind the bar at all. And it became a 2-hour seminar that we've now had people like Desmond Payne, Jeff Berry, Alexander Gabriel. Yeah.
You had Torres recently.
Yes.
You had Javier from Torres.
Yes.
Did you have someone up for absinthe, or did you do the absinthe one?
We did. Milo Rodriguez, who works with Ted Bro, came up and did one. Actually, Ted came to one talk, one of the sessions, and just sat in the audience.
Oh, that must have been stressful.
No, it was wonderful. It was fantastic. and also, Naren Young came to one early on because he was up.
He was opening a place up here.
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of neat, and I got to know Ted, and Ted and I share a love of absinthe. Ted has lived absinthe a lot more than I have. But yeah, we got Milo to do. He did one, but I'd done one previously. And I did some other things. I did one on tequila because I had a lot of old tequilas and new tequilas and compare the flavor. And then I did one on mint juleps because I met this 83-year-old bartender in 2003 and had his mint julep. That was at the Omni Hotel in New Orleans. And for the first 3 years before Katrina, for the week I was there, 2003, 4, and 5, every day for the week, I would go to his bar and have a mint julep. And I memorized how he made mint juleps in that time. And he has since, when Katrina hit, he never moved back to New Orleans. And he then passed away last Christmas, apparently. And when I talked about him to people like Chris McMillan, I was told he was a legend. So I wanted to share how he made a mint julep.
Did you replicate it exactly the same?
I did a good job. I did a good job. But I think I would like to do a better job at some point.
Yeah, I feel like it's always the mint. And mint is so... like people talk about terroir of ingredients and stuff. Like when you really talk about the mint julep, it can be great bourbon, exact same sugar, anything. But then it's the mint from that guy's garden that has the southeast-facing window that he just trims off every day, and it's alive until like you basically put it into the cup.
Yep, there's no question. In New Orleans, of course, they have great mint because they've got like a growing season to die for. But it was also the way he did it because it was a tall drink. It wasn't a small.
Oh.
Yeah, and it had about 3 ounces of bourbon in it. And once you learn to make them, it's one of the best mint juleps I've ever had.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's other than the Toplack sessions, have you got some plans soon?
Yes. We're working on an absinthe festival next April 2020, to have it here in Toronto.
That's incredible.
I think it's a great thing. It came to me because last Christmas I heard of a Prince Edward Island distiller who had won a spirit competition, got a gold medal for their absinthe. So an absinthe on Prince Edward Island.
Wow, which I just found out from Shane Behan's seminar, that Prince Edward Island had prohibition from 1901 to 1948.
Wow.
47 years of prohibition in Prince Edward Island.
Longer than anywhere else.
Which then blows my mind that like you can get a distiller who's making an absinthe that wins a gold medal.
Yeah, I know. So it's good. And it's like, okay, so when that happened, I thought, okay, 1 in Prince Edward Island, 3 in Quebec, 1 in Ontario, 1 in BC. I'm sure there are others we haven't even...
6 in BC now.
6 in BC.
Yeah.
6
6 absinthes in BC now.
Okay, so that tells me we got to have a festival. Because to support that, I'd also like to attract people from the U.S. to be involved and for Europe, if they'd like, because I'd like it to be something that gets absinthe kind of... gets people excited about absinthe.
And I hear you talk about Toplack sessions and everything. You do so much for the industry without any... You do it all for the passion. There's no money involved. At the end of the day, like in the grand schemes of payment and money and making revenue,
yes,
passion comes first, and if money follows it, then it's
absolutely.
Because I don't know anyone who would import freaking mezcal into Canada in 1998 in the hopes of retiring.
Well, absolutely, and my 2000 and my 20 year the 21st century. We're in the 21st century. Right? My 21st century plan or business model has been importing a producer largely of modifiers and liqueurs.
Yeah.
Again, not going to make a ton of money on creme de menthe.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
You could bring the frappe back. You could bring the creme de menthe frappe
Absolutely,
back.
absolutely, and the grasshopper,
Yeah.
and the stinger. I mean, those are that's my only hope. All those drinks, but it is. It's about when I encounter a great spirit, I want people to be exposed to it. So I bring in some of the very best spirits I've ever encountered, and yeah, they're not going to make me a lot of money, but bartenders should have them to work with. And I just like being part of that. I may not be the one to do it forever, because, as I've said, my business model is pathetic. I have yet to learn how to monetize anything. That's my goal, is to kind of figure out a way to monetize something.
Yeah, trust me, my wife's been telling me to monetize myself for years, and
Yeah?
it's not happening.
But you seem to be making a living at this.
I'm making a living, yes. I
know.
I do well.
Okay.
But I pick up a lot of projects with passion more than anything else.
Okay, yeah.
Passion is the first thing. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm really passionate about something,
Yeah.
I'll do it. And my wife's like, well, how are you going to make money from that? Like, doesn't really matter right now. I'll figure that out later.
Yeah.
You
No,
know?
I'm definitely. This is the absinthe. The absinthe festival is a thing of passion. Jonathan Humphrey, when I suggested it to him, just rolled his eyes and said, "Okay."
I think it's genius.
I think it's
I
great.
think you can do some nice little nighttime seminars for the general public. I think you can do some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I think just a couple days.
Yeah.
And have some seminars for the industry during the day. Try to get somebody here who, people will bring people out. And then, I've got a couple ideas of moving on from there. There are other spirits that people need to be introduced to. So I've got a plan or two.
Andrew Toplack is going to become the biggest importer of Baiju.
That's the one spirit I'm probably never going to import, because I know there are people that love it.
Yeah.
Sean, but I'm not one of them.
It is a love-hate spirit. I know Nick over at Civil Liberties just loves the stuff.
Absolutely loves this
And
stuff.
he just absolutely goes mental for it. And I appreciate it. It's just one that I think you have to just drink and drink and drink. You need to have a big night on Baiju, and which will go either way, where you wake up the next morning going, oh, that's never happening again, or you go, oh, that's fantastic.
I know, some people love it. Dave Wondrich is a big fan of it.
Donnie Vernon, huge fan.
Christine Sismondo, not
Yep.
so much. And I'm not so much. I don't want to drink lots and lots and lots of it, because I kind of hate it.
Okay, so I think we're going to wrap it up there, because I think we've got a conference to go back to, and I'm trying not to tie up too many people away from seminars and stuff.
Yeah.
What's your favourite spirit you're drinking right now?
Right this second, because it changes every day and every moment of every day. Right this second, it's O.P. Anderson Aquavit, which
Ooh,
is
that's a good
absolutely lovely.
Aged or just the clear?
It's got color, so
Got
it's
color,
probably
yeah.
aged. It's what they call the original. They're
Yeah.
original, and it's just so easy drinking. And
That's Swedish?
it's Swedish, yeah.
Swedish, yeah. I think I bought a bottle back there from Iceland when I was there.
Uh-huh.
It was one of the ones that I used to develop my aquavit. So it was one that I was up and was like, hey, this is, like, I took up 10, 12 aquavits
Yes.
and tasted it with the distiller. And I was like, I think this flavor profile and this texture is where we should go.
Yeah.
And currently, right now, we have 3 barrels, I think, of aquavit aging in Red 5 whiskey barrels.
Okay.
So that should be out by Christmas-ish.
Good, because I want to taste it.
Okay, well, OPN, that was the curveball. And it's a great aquavit.
It's fantastic.
So keep your eye out for the Absinthe Festival next year. I think that's gonna be killer.
I think it's going to be wonderful. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, green fairies and everything like that. Thanks for your time, man.
Well, thank you.
You're
It's a
literally
pleasure.
one of my favorite people in Toronto when I come to Toronto and hang out. Like, you're literally as pure as driven snow, and you're the nicest person out there.
I'm nice-ish.
Nice-ish. I've never been on your bad side, so maybe
Never,
I'm just missing it.
I don't see it happening.
I really appreciate you sitting down with me. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thanks,
Thank
mate.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah.
That was great.
Thanks, Post Shifters. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you're listening, whatever platform you're on, give me a good rating, subscribe, listen along. I'm going to keep going. I really enjoy sitting down with people and learning where they're from, what they did, and how they got to where they were. So if you love it, give me a good 5 stars. If you don't, give me 1 and I'll try harder.